Welcome to Wealthy Mind, where we talk about all things finances, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the surprising. Hello, and welcome to Wealthy Mind. I am your host, Misty Rose Gold, International Success Coach. And here at Wealthy Mind, we love to help you create and maintain a wealthy mind. And today I have a very special guest with me, all the way from Mexico City, right?
That's where I am at the moment, yes.
She's a globetrotter, y'all. She wasn't born in Mexico City, but Michelle, would you please introduce yourself to the audience? Your name, who are you, what do you do?
I would love to. Thanks for having me on, Misty. So, my name is Michelle Boyde, and I'm the founder and I run a company called Identity Atmospherics. And so, what we do is we create the internal atmosphere for identity stability. And so, we do that in different kind of forums. So, we have a part of the business which is on, bigger aspects of identity. So, for example, you're perhaps leaving a career and becoming a founder, or you're becoming a CEO, or you're exiting, or perhaps you're going through divorce, or one of these big aspects. But we've also got an arm that we're developing in these more micro moments. So spaces where the external environment changes and your identity destabilizes. For example, you go stay in a beautiful hotel, but you're not able to sleep and have the most restful and beautiful experience because you're not stabilized in that. So that's the work that I do. And I'm English, I'm Australian, but as you say, I'm currently in Mexico City.
Yeah, just pop into a new city somewhere in the world when you feel like moving. Um, love it for you. Like, it's not my desire to live in different countries and cities, but for people that it is, how much fun, right? If that's what makes you happy,
Mm.
do that. And I love that. So, you guys, Michelle calls herself the Identity Alchemist, which I think is pretty cool. Where did that title come from?
It came from the fact that my work is deeply in the identity space, and it's alchemy. So it's supporting people when they feel that they're between identities, and it's that change that happens within them. So that's what I've been calling myself, and it's certainly interesting because people always go, "Oh, tell me more." I think it's one of those titles that people want to lean into. So
Mhm.
um the space that I work into, it's just interesting because it's very hard to put a very distinct title on it. A lot of the titles that other people want to use don't really fully capture the work that I do. So that's where I've landed at the moment.
Mm, yeah. I'm just thinking of all the different transitions that we can experience in the professional world if we're business owners or transitioning from a career to a business, whatever it is, whatever time of transition that we're going through, there's always that space of, I don't know who I am, and there's so much uncertainty. What am I doing? Up is down, down is up. Like, you know exactly what I mean.
I do completely. I mean, I've done the transition myself of, I used to be a consultant and I left that career 7 years ago. And then obviously I've gone through those stages of founding a business and growing a business. And then even, as of March, as I sort of nodded to, I packed up life in Australia and thought, hey, I'm going to take my business on the road with me for a
Mm,
while because I feel at the moment that I want to be in some different geographies.
hmm.
That'll change and I'll want to settle shortly.
Sure.
But there's a lot of transition that comes with that, which is
Hmm.
exciting and at the same time, can be wobbly as well.
Definitely. And it's the courage to embrace the wobbly bits when we set out to do something new or different. It's like what I'm hearing is that you and I both shape our own identity just from the
Just one way, yeah.
conversations that we've had leading up to this.
Mm.
And I think it's an important message for the audience to hear, especially going into a brand new year. They have their goals for
Mm.
2026 and maybe some New Year's resolutions, which,
Mm.
whatever. If they work for you, great. I've never made New Year's resolutions. I just set the goals that I need to for the year and we're good to go. And some could argue that they're the same, but for me, they're not. It's just more of the
Mm.
same. I'm just doing more
Mm.
of the same and adding to what I've already done in the year prior. So, um, going into this brand new year, people need to know that they can shape their own identity. Like so many of our identities were created for us by family, by society, by our childhood, by extended family, by peers. So many outsourced or outside influences shaped our identity as we were growing up and forming. But we have the ability, if we're brave enough, to sit in the uncomfortable, wobbly bits.
Yeah.
We're brave, and if we are brave enough, we can shape our own identity and decide who we want to be, how we want to show up. And I think it's such a powerful message that everybody needs to hear right now.
Mm. It is. And, the bit that's interesting here and really, really relates into a lot of the work that I do is all this external piece. Because our identity wants to orientate into something. And we tend to orientate externally. And so whether that is a role, a job, a revenue number, I'm married, I have children, I live here, I'm growing this business, I'm having this impact. I mean, there's endless external reference points that our identity wants to orientate into. But if you are the type of person who wants to do something different, who wants to change that external world, you are by nature changing those external points that you orientate into.
Mm,
And that's when you have that identity instability and you feel the so called wobble. So, it's really interesting if you look at it society wide. If you think about where we were kind of 50 years ago, nobody really changed the external orientation points that often. You
mm,
kind of grew up where you grew up, and you went to school there and you tended to stay around most of the people that you knew, and you got a job and you invariably stayed in that career and maybe even that company, and you got married once and you had kids, and nothing changed that much. And so actually your identity would orientate into that and it would just kind of stay that way. And yet now, if you think about the way we live our lives more broadly, we're changing
mm,
it all the time. People move
mm,
locations, they change careers, they change companies, they start businesses, they grow them, they sell them. Many people have several marriages or no marriages. Like all of
mm,
this sort of structure that we orientate into has changed so much, even if you think the last 10, 20 years, that it's kind
mm,
of no surprise that, broadly speaking, more people feel more wobbles. It's a
definitely.
scientific term.
It is, and I love that term. Uh,
Yeah.
the the basic identity that you threw out, I don't resonate with because I left home at 15 years old. So I automatically put myself in a state of, well, here's my greatest fear. I'm going to go face it. So leaving
Mm.
home at 15, I was essentially homeless for about 5 years. Uh, it was a better environment for me to couch surf
Mm.
and sleep where I could and, just do what I could in order to live. It was better for me than being at home. So it gave me the courage and the bravery to face the rest of my life, which I am so grateful for. And that shifted my identity. And, because like a lot of people are fear-based. So it broke fear off of me. It's like, well, shit, if I can leave home at 15 years old and live homeless, basically, um, I can pretty much do anything, right? So it shifted my
Mm.
identity. And then there's another time that I think of that was fundamental for me as a young woman. I always took stock in my external beauty. And in my early 20s, I put on some weight. I was model size and put on some weight in my early 20s, and I didn't feel beautiful anymore. And then I had to shift my identity. I was like, wait a second, I need to find my identity with what's inside me, not what
Yeah.
is on the outside of me, but what is on the inside of me. And I went searching for the good parts of me and the beauty that's on the inside. And that's when my identity shifted to my internal beauty and has stayed there the
Yeah.
rest of my life because I don't find my identity in stuff. I don't find my identity in money. I don't find my identity in accomplishments. I do identify as a world changer, but that's kind of a loose term. Um, the greatest sense of my identity is who am I on the inside? And
And that, yeah.
that's the most important for me, right? Because my identity is so deeply rooted on who I am internally, external circumstances can't shake me in that
Mm.
way. Like, yes, I do feel wobbly at times because I challenge myself often,
Mm.
but I'm still grounded in my self-worth. I'm still grounded in my self-esteem. I'm still grounded in my self-love. I'm still grounded in those things that make me who I am, that make me magnetic, that make me like joyful and generally positive. And whatever I'm facing, I'm still able to show up because my identity is rooted inside myself. I could imagine how much more scary and wobbly life would feel like if my identity was rooted in something outside of myself or even my appearance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and this is the ultimate thing. I mean, what you're describing is what I call identity stabilization. It's
Mm,
when your identity is stable, irrespective of what is changing in your outside world.
mm,
And so you then have this really powerful foundation from which to operate.
mm,
And yes, you might change the goal and the vision.
mm,
And so you are then trying to anchor into those things externally as you go, but you have that foundation.
mm,
And so you're not wobbled by all of those things because the reality is life's changing all the time for
mm,
us. So we always have those things that are affecting where we're at. And it's really interesting if you look at the etymology and the word root of the word identity and to identify, it's
mm,
actually sameness. And so
mm,
when we identify something, we're actually always seeking sameness. So we're basically going, if this is the same as this, I can identify it as X. So, oh, it's got
mm,
8 legs and it runs around on the earth. Oh, it's a spider. And so when we enter spaces and different places in our life, our identity wants to orientate into sameness. And when it can find that, then we feel stable in our identity. But if it can't find sameness, that's when we feel unsettled and we experience the wobble. So that's actually what's happening in those situations. And it's interesting. You can see who is stabilized and who's not, because if you take something like, for example, you go into a room with people you've never met before,
mm,
you're orientating towards sameness. So if the people in the room look like you, sound like you, dress like you, appear to be like you on all the levels that we are not even aware that we're analyzing those people,
mm,
then we can plug into that and we feel settled. But if you go into a room and you can't find that sameness to orientate your identity to, a lot of people feel deeply unsettled. And yet, there are people who can walk into any room in any scenario and
mm,
retain that sense of foundation and power. And those are exactly to your point, like
mm,
yourself, they're
mm,
people who it's all internal coherence. So it doesn't matter what happens externally, I can actually rise and I can regulate out to stress, change, but the foundation is always there.
mm. Definitely. And I get comments all the time or questions of how do you stay so grounded all the time or how do you stay so centered all the time? And the simple answer is lots of meditation. I mean, you have to be willing to shut out the noise and sit with yourself.
You do. You really, really do. And a lot of people aren't prepared to do that. And that period of COVID when we couldn't go out, it was different in every country, but once we were all sort of shut in our homes to an
Hmm.
extent, and people couldn't go to
Hmm.
the gym and they couldn't go to restaurants, they couldn't socialize to the extent they were kind of at home on their own in their homes for these extended periods. you had people who just totally overworked because it meant they weren't alone with their thoughts, or
Mm-hmm.
people who drank a lot because they didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
be alone with their thoughts. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this whole thing is about our inability to sit with ourselves without
Correct.
external stimulation. And your
Yeah.
ability to do that determined how you experienced that. I believe, I feel that was the core thread through that. If you could sit with yourself and be alone with whatever was happening in your own mind and your body, you had a totally different experience to someone who
Mhm.
couldn't.
Well, it brought a lot of revelations to people, even if they were only able
Mm.
to sit with themselves for an hour a day. This
Mm.
the forced isolation brought out marriages, the issues in marriages, the issues in themselves. Like it brought out a lot of change, which I think is good over the long run. But for me,
Yeah, definitely.
COVID didn't change my life at all because the way that I lived was like, okay, cool. The only thing I can't do is I can't go into the restaurant where I want to eat my food. I just have to take it to go. That was all
Mm.
that changed. Like
Yeah.
the end. And I was so grateful that my business was set up already to where I was working mostly remotely at that time. So when COVID hit, that was it. And, it was the final breaking point in my marriage. So there was that part of it too. It was like I had already reached, all right, we're done type of situation that Christmas before. And
Mm.
then Valentine's Day came around and another thing happened. And I'm like, ugh, this has got to stop. And then COVID happened. I was like, yeah, it's done. Like, there's no salvaging this marriage. So COVID wasn't the cause of my divorce. It just happened during 2020, but it contributed to like that final decision of this has to stop.
Mm. Yeah,
So
I hear you.
that's the only factor, like the only way that COVID played any role in my life was just the icing on the cake, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a very similar experience. I was living by the beach in Australia, in Sydney, and I was already running my business. It was all online, or it could be all online if I didn't have people locally.
Mhm.
And yeah, it didn't change my life vastly, except for I couldn't fly. I couldn't fly out of Australia for a very long time because we really
Right.
locked our borders down. But yeah, and
Mm,
like you, I have a disciplined meditation practice, a daily
mm.
practice. So
Yeah, I
I feel
can't
quite
imagine.
comfortable sitting with myself.
Ugh. If I try to think about going through COVID now that we're having this conversation without the practices that I have, it would have been a nightmare. I probably would have drank every single day. Like, I'm not a big drinker, but I probably would have drank every single day and just, I don't know. I don't know. I can't imagine what life would be like without those practices. So if if anybody listening is intrigued by this conversation or curious or wanting to shift your identity, just build introspective practices through meditation. And there's different forms of meditation. Like I'm a very active person, so I stretch and listen to music, mostly Native American flute music, but sometimes I switch it up. So I stretch, meditate, and listen to that type of music all at the same time because I'm an active individual. The only time I can like really sit still is when I'm out in nature. Um, and it works. Like you just have to know yourself and figure out what works for you so that you can go internal and figure out what you need to figure out and be able to observe your thoughts and your emotions without judgment and shift what you need to
Mm.
shift. And we have the power to do it. And I think that's what it comes down to is people realizing that, okay, you might be arguing with yourself right now when I'm just like, hey, find a meditative practice that works for you. Well, you do have
Yeah.
the power to shift. You do have the power over your mind. You do have the power over your emotions. And so many people have listened to the programming that they don't have the power to control their thoughts, which
Mm.
is absolutely not true. So you get to choose your identity in this life. If you identify as a person that can control their thoughts, you're going to control your thoughts.
And I also think that the bit that's misunderstood here as well, and how people make it harder, is they often think they have to do a lot,
Mm,
because often the very focus is more doing, it's more creating, it's more pushing forward.
mm,
That when you go internally, you don't in fact need to do doing, you're doing being.
You're
And
being.
so you're being, yeah. So it's not always about another tool, another technique, another process, another method. A Actually, acceptance is one of those really powerful places to experience yourself from, and it removes so much of the charge that sits
Hmm.
around the narrative and the perception that we have of who we are and what we're experiencing.
Mm,
And just to be there, as you say, in quiet, whatever type of quiet works for you,
hmm.
and to just be in full acceptance of yourself, in all the versions of yourself, and whatever
Hmm.
version of yourself is present in that particular moment, is a very, very powerful place to come from.
Most definitely. And one thing I can recommend to people, if they have access to a saltwater float, uh, either like the Roman bath style or the capsules, that there's like saltwater float tanks that they can use. But here in Denver, we have one that's called Easy Float. And it's kind of like a giant bathtub with a tall ceiling, but it's enclosed. So it's a very pleasant experience, and you don't have to deal with claustrophobia. But I love that experience because the room goes dark. And of course, you have a light that you can play with if you get freaked out. But um, the room goes dark, you're floating, you're weightless. And it helps you to just get into that space. It's a 90-minute experience. So it helps you to get into that space of maybe people that aren't used to practicing meditation, maybe the first 15 minutes, they have a whole bunch of thoughts going through their head, or maybe I do too. Like it just depends on the day. And then you're able to get in that space where you're just sitting with yourself
Yeah.
and everything disappears and you feel weightless. It's an incredible experience. And I always recommend that to people that want to start a practice because you actually have to feel it. You need to experience it somehow.
Yeah.
And that type of
I
floating experience will help you, like, oh, okay, now I get what they're talking about. And then go recreate that.
completely. And so when I was 18, so I didn't, I started meditating when I was sort of 30. But when I was 18, I became a scuba diving instructor
Mm,
before I went off to university. And then I would work in between each year of university, I'd work in diving. And then when I left university, I went and worked as a shark photographer before I kind of settled into my, career, as it were.
mm,
And diving for me gave me that experience, because you're underwater, you're weightless, you're floating, no one
mm,
can talk to you. There's And yet you're deeply in your senses, because
mm.
you're taking in everything you can see, you can hear the bubbles, you can feel the water, you can taste the salt. And I used to find that such, even to this day, I find that really meditative, even though it's not, traditional meditation at all.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be traditional meditation. I think that's kind of what we're spelling out for
Mm,
people is that there are different ways to get there. If
yeah.
it's scuba diving, if it's going to a saltwater float, please
Mm,
do it. Just allow yourself to experience that nothingness. And it's so beautiful. And once you experience it, you're like, oh, I want more. It-
Totally. I was working with a client the other week, and one of the things that we set for him was he was just to get up in the morning, make a cup of tea, and sit on his own for 10 minutes, because he's never done that before. And he came back
mm,
and he was like, "That was so enjoyable."
mm,
And I was like, "Yeah, it really is. It really, really
hmm.
is."
Definitely. With my clients being business owners,
Mm,
it's common for business owners to hit burnout. So what I teach my people
mm,
is take 15 to 20 minutes a day of self-care. If it's a change of scenery, go to a park, go for a quick walk, go look at nature, go sit in your car somewhere, shut your eyes, go to a spa for 15 minutes, whatever it is that you need to do to just shut down for 15, 20 minutes. It's life-changing per day throughout your
yeah.
workday. It's everything. Like today, I popped in and I did a spa service, and I also did a quick little loop around a park, even though it was a colder day today. But that's fine. I was dressed for the occasion and it worked out great. But it was what I needed for my sanity. It's what I needed for the reset and the things that I've been processing through today, in addition to my work day. So whenever my clients try it, they're like, man, this is a game changer. I'm like, I know, it doesn't take a lot, just 15,
Yeah.
20 minutes of you time to close your
Mm.
eyes, recharge, stare at water, whatever it is that you need
Yeah.
to do. It helps you because that's what's filling you back up. It's filling up your tank. Like you can't run on empty. So
Mm.
those moments help to recharge and to fill back up, and they're not complicated. It's very simple and very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. It can be. It absolutely
Mhm.
can be. Mm.
Yes. This is such a fun conversation. I think before we wrap up, I would like to bring in some of your clientele when they're shifting from being the business owner to exiting the business, or actually maybe shifting from business owner to CEO so they can exit.
Mm.
That's an even more dramatic identity shift. So let's talk about that one. So when the business owner has to become the CEO in order to exit their business, what have you experienced with your
Mm.
clients going through that identity shift, or what are your thoughts around it?
Yeah. So what you've got is a reorientation of their identity. So if you think, in that founder space, you're orientating towards that real hustle, growth, building. There's a whole identity of that initial startup growth energy. And then,
Mm,
when you start to orientate into that CEO space and you take on that CEO title, which not everybody feels like they're fully ready to adopt inside
mm,
themselves, and yet the growth has been there, and the employee growth has been there, etc. And then you're orientating into the revenue and potentially a shareholder relationship and all of these other aspects. And then when you do exit, all of that disappears completely. And so you've got nothing to deeply orientate into. But every time you're not being able to find that sameness and that external world is changing, what you will experience is essentially oscillation. So if you're listening to this now and you kind of feel that you're in it, you'll feel there's an oscillation, which means that you might be moving between periods of feeling very focused and then suddenly feeling like you procrastinate, or that you've got very big emotions and then you're experiencing other emotions or numbness. You've got big
mm,
surges of energy, and then all of a sudden you're absolutely knackered and tired. And then you're like, oh, I'm so clear on my vision and where we're going. And the next minute, you're questioning what it is that you're heading towards. And so that kind of what feels like an in-between space is
mm,
just the instability of not yet being orientated into this new world. And so you have two options. You either keep trying to build the external orientation, which is a never ending game,
mhm,
or you start building the internal structure of your identity. So it doesn't matter what changes externally, you've always got that really strong foundation to operate from. Because what you'll see is you want to scramble to find
mm,
the external points. And that's why very often you'll see entrepreneurs exit. And in one breath, they're saying to their wife, their husband, their friends, I'm going to take a bit of downtime. I'm going to play some golf. And then before you know it, they're already building the next business.
mm,
And part of that is ambition, but part of it is also that they're trying to put all the external points in to be able to orientate their identity back to, because all of
mm,
a sudden they don't have the recognition, the relevance, the rewards, all of those things that came with being the CEO. And so that's very much the experience. You kind of always have two options. You're like, you can keep putting the external out, or you can start looking at the internal structure.
mm. Yeah, good, good stuff to chew on and think about. I love that. It's This is the world that I play in. I either work on growth
Mm.
strategies or exit strategies with my clients. So I'm in this space all the time. And when the business owner realizes that they have to become the CEO, there's always an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
Always,
Yeah.
always like, I don't know how to show up as a CEO. I'm like, that's why I'm here. I'll teach you. I'll help you figure that out. Like,
Mm,
it's unique to each person, but there are some similarities between all of them of like being
mm,
able to lead. Leadership is a huge part of becoming the CEO, and being able to remove yourself from the business is a huge hit to the entrepreneur's ego. So you have to
mm.
work through that. And you know what? Like, maybe the world doesn't revolve around me, which it feels great when it does, but uh,
Totally.
yeah, it's
Mm,
quite the life-changing experience when somebody embraces that journey of, you know what? I do want to exit. I do have to become the CEO to do so if I want a really successful exit. And what do I have to do internally? Who do I have to become to be that person and to shift my identity within the business? It's massive, massive
it
undertaking. And
is.
I touch it, you touch it, we approach it in different
Mm,
ways, but it's still to the same end for the business owner of let's do this without major issues if we can avoid them. uh,
yeah.
and it's always nice
Yeah.
to have somebody that you can trust to be in that space with you and
Mm,
have a trusted advisor that you you know them, you can rely upon them, and they can hold that space for you. Your
mm.
advisor needs to be grounded and centered. If it's
Absolutely.
if it's not one of us, whoever you're choosing as an advisor to take you down that road needs to be grounded and centered. They need to be a leader for you to show you what to embody along the way. That's very, very, very important. So I'm always telling people if you're looking at coaches, if you're looking at advisors, if you're looking at whoever, how do they show up? Are they chaotic? Are they stressed out all the time? Like, that's not going to be the person to truly guide you to the
Mm,
end goal, but also do it fulfilled. Like, really pay attention. So, um, yeah, I mean, this is probably another conversation we can have in the future if we feel like it, but
yeah,
just food for thought, you guys. You have the power to shift your identity no matter what identity it is. If you're becoming the CEO, so you can exit. If you're going from a career to a business owner, you have the power to shift your identity.
you do. You absolutely do.
Any final words for the audience, Michelle?
I would say, it's really worth just looking at your life and looking at where you are locked in to external reference points and starting to detach yourself from those, because that's where the power lies when you pull that energy and that attention back inward. And it's also a deeply relational experience, as you've nodded to, because as your identity changes, all of your relationships change,
Mm,
external relationships, as well as that one to yourself. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing, a good thing. It just is, but it's part of that experience. Your relationship to your employees, your relationship to all the people that you partner with, all of that stuff will naturally shift along with that journey.
mm, mm. Yeah, so what I'm hearing is be brave.
And embrace it.
Yep, embrace it. Definitely. So if people want to get a hold of you, what is your website?
So, what I would suggest is if you go to theidentityaudit.com, so don't
Mm,
forget the on the front, and you'll come into my site there. And on that particular page, you'll see some information where you'll be able to see quite quickly if this sort of work is sort of relevant to where you are or not. And then there's obviously an option to get in contact if you want to discuss it a bit further. So, theidentityaudit.com would be the place to come into, and then you'll access everything else from there.
wonderful. Well, thank you for a very thought-provoking, I'm not going to say interview, I'm going to say conversation, very thought-provoking conversation. And I appreciate the work that you do for people in transition.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. All right, you guys, if you are interested in learning more about Michelle, please check out our website. And I hope this has left you with some nuggets that are going to help you as you're moving into a new year, new identity, and figuring it out. So until next time, we will see you guys soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Wealthy Mind podcast. Please be sure to download the Wealthy Mind app today and make sure to support your local Dress for Success.